Hey yo, how you guys doing? I'm terrible, thanks for asking. This week, we have what I'm calling the Tower of Power. Honestly, this might be the most complicated build that I've done so far. It looks super simple at first sight, but man, this thing was tedious. This technically being a super simple build, all that's needed is Mr. Jeremy irons and some 1mm solder, or whatever solder you have laying around. And as I found out later in the build, some of my garbage no-clean flux helps too. As usual, I like to lay everything out and make sure that everything is there. I don't want to be 90% done and find out I don't have enough LEDs or whatever. Now this thing in my hand is an acrylic template. It comes with the kit, and I have to say, it's pretty ingenious. It's just a bunch of holes drilled in a spiral pattern, 12 different rows that each make a progressively bigger, or smaller, diameter ring of LEDs, depending on which way you start, of course. All in all, this is a super basic kit. It's just 155 LEDs and a base. The base comes fully assembled, which kinda sucks. I would have liked to have soldered the components onto it, but oh well, what are you gonna do? The instructions are pretty simple for this one. We bend the cathode pin, leg? Pin? I don't know, I'm gonna call it a leg for this one. We bend it 90 degrees horizontally to the anode leg. The cathode leg is almost always the shorter leg, but you never know. This is why you saw me check it at the 28-second mark. In simpler terms, if the long leg is away from you and the short leg is closer to you, bend the short one to the left, and then insert it into the template. I started with the biggest one, but you know, feel free. This thicker solder is getting real smoky. I wish I had something to suck the fumes away. Oh wait, I do. I made it a few videos ago. Want to see? Link above. Soldering the cathodes on the bigger rings is pretty simple, as you can see. But as they get progressively smaller, it gets to be a bit more of a pain. But still, this is the easy part. I wish we would have used some flux for these. It would have went much faster and the solder would have flowed much smoother. But as usual, I let the voices in my head get the best of me, and I tried it without the flux for quite a while. Oh well, now I know for the next one. And this was the next 2 hours of my evening. I'll save you folks from watching most of it. It's just the same thing over and over and over, just progressively tighter rings, until you start going up again. It's 12 rings in this order, according to the instructions. 8, 7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And for dummies, like me, who don't read good, it's only 1, 1. So now I have an extra ring. Lucky they give you a bunch of extra LEDs. Anyway, the only other part to making the rings is the trimming of the cathodes. As the tighter the rings get, the more likely they are to short against the anodes. No biggie, just don't be like me and cut them over or into a box. I'm still finding these legs all over the place. And just like that, the rings are done. I tested them to make sure they worked. If you don't have a bench power supply, 2 AA batteries will work. 3 volts, that's all you need. And for right now, they all seem to work just fine. Can you sense the foreshadowing? Now comes the fun part. And by fun part, I mean no fun at all. It wasn't all that bad. I'm sure if I make something similar to this, it'll be a lot easier. You know, practice and all. So you're supposed to bend the anode pins to a 20-degree angle, and then solder each ring so that the LED above is about 7/8 of an inch or so higher than the next. But here's the trick. How the hell are you supposed to hold the pins together, hold the solder, and the soldering iron with 2 hands? Yeah, I know. Buy a set of helping hands, you say. Well, I have a set, but do you really think I'm going to lean over to the other side of the bench and get them? Come on, bro. What am I, Plastic Man? Or Mr. Fantastic if you're a Marvel fan? DC for the win, and don't argue with me. I'm older, and I know better. Oh, where was I? So I figured the best way to do this is to hold the legs together with tweezers, hit them with some flux, and then load the iron tip up with solder, and hope for the best. It actually worked pretty well. The only problem I kept having was the rings would come apart because I didn't use flux on them in the beginning. Oh well, now I know for next time. And so do you. For the most part, that's the build. There's a spire that's added to the top that I'm making right now. that's also made with the template. It's a little tricky, but being used to doing this by this point, it only took a few minutes. Then 3 more LEDs on top of each other, and the total height is supposed to be roughly 15 inches. I was only off by 1.1 inches. Amazing. I don't see where I could have made up the height, but I guess even a 1/16 of an inch over 12 levels can make a difference. I was kind of impressed with how straight, can you hear the air quotes, this came out. I mean, don't get me wrong, I had to make some strategic molding and bending moves, but it really worked out in the end. The spire went on pretty uneventfully, or should I say it was super easy, barely an inconvenience. Using the whatever you got trick, I just held up the spire with the tweezers and soldered away. Last part is wiring all the cathode rings to the base PCB with the supplied 26 gauge wire. I wish they would have made it a different color. It being white, it kind of sticks out. I should have just used a marker and made it silver to match the legs. Anyway, just wrap it around the ring somewhere and then drop it down to the base. I tried to keep them as close together as possible, you know, cable management and all. 14 wires, 7 on each side of the PCB. Looking back, I wish I would have staggered them, one side then the other. It might have looked a little better. And that's it. The Tower of Power is done. There were a few issues, because of course there were. 2 broken cathode rings, simple re-soldered it, and like 4 burnt out LEDs. I probably overheated them trying to figure out the best way to solder them in. Whatever, it works, and as we say here at Let's Make Shit, it's good enough. It's just a practice kit anyway. Well, anyway, thanks for joining me on my little journey here, and I'll leave you with some fancy B-roll, and as always, thanks for watching.